Choir, you ready to do this with me again? Got your energy? Good. Something is different. You can feel that we're here on Easter morning with some greater energy. No doubt it's because of all of the great talent of our chancel choir, don't you think? It's also due to a great colleague, John and Connie. Thank you for these weeks of coming together. The room is fuller with signs of talent in the decorations and in the sight of Easter lilies, and the guests, you're always welcome. But the greater energy is located first in the story of Jesus' death and resurrection. This is a gospel story that we hear told that causes people to want to come out and be a part of this day, while privately believing or disbelieving or unsure of, or in the end, perhaps it's just because people need to be together in a place where we can live as if there could be hope in the midst of despair, as if new life will always rise up in the midst of death, as if love will triumph over hate. Easter is the day when we know by instinct that our music needs to be joyful and bursting with promise. And today then calls for a string quartet because this is the Sunday when we expect our Easter music to lift us up to the skies. And this is the day then when symbols of new life line our chancel stairs, when alleluias are lifted up again in every form and children hunt for Easter eggs on the lawn. It might also be the day to remind ourselves that we are now the hands of Christ on earth and keep our mission always in front of us. We try to understand the call to do mission in the world every day. Last week we filled up a car full of supplies for a hospice, Las Memorias. Soon we'll be gathering food for food pantries. We'll be cooking on Wednesday at Isaiah House. Some of you visit detainees in jail. We'll be walking this year in the AIDS Walk, and please, we need some more folks to sign up. See Felicity in the back. This is part of being what we call now Matthew 25 Christians. But we never forget the joy of being in a community of faith that brings a word of hope to each other and the person who just walked through the door. And so before we talk about the Gospel of John, where all of those women and the men raced to the tomb, let's talk about to whom the church should be reaching this morning. Because the word of hope, the word of life in the midst of death, the joy found that we are charged to give away is universal. It cannot be owned or co-opted by any specific group or demographic. The God that we name as love and the Jesus we proclaim are universal as love is itself. And as Peter said to Cornelius in our passage from Acts, I understand that God shows no partiality. The message of hope that goes out from the church on Easter morning, as it does on any morning, belongs to everyone. It belongs equally to women as it belongs to men. It proclaims as beloved the lesbian, the gay, bisexual, or transgendered person, just as it does the straight. The message of hope and the promise of life in the midst of death breaks out of the tomb, just as our gospel account claims that there is nothing that can hold it in. Hope. It is something worth racing towards, something worth embracing for any and all, however you hear and understand it. Immigrant or national, homeowner or homeless, racial or ethnic composition, religious or political affiliation, Western or Eastern hemisphere, isn't there something universal in the message that love conquers all and that life does exist in the midst of death? Are you with me? Amen. The Easter message encourages us to race towards the good news as if the good news will be there when we get there, despite the evidence all around us and with the certainty that everyone is invited to partake. In the Synoptic Gospels, it is the women who are racing towards the tomb. They were the first disciples. The men came later. They were the ones who looked for the good news. And in Matthew, we know it's Mary Magdalene, and it says the other Mary. In Mark, Mary Magdalene is accompanied by Mary, the mother of James, and Salome. In Luke, Joanna and some other women, it says some other women, join them. Only in the Gospel of John do men enter the picture, and when they do, they become competitive. Mary Magdalene had gone ahead. She found the tomb. She found the tomb empty. She ran to tell Peter the news. And then it says, and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, John himself is the disciple who loved Jesus so much that he outraced Peter to the tomb. He's racing to find some good news, but he wants to be first. He is living as if. They raced to the tomb as people who lived as if miracles could occur, as if a resurrection might take place when we need to believe it most. But then we are people who are called to live as if and live the joy within. A retired preaching colleague of mine said, I have concluded that people turn out on Easter not entirely out of convention and custom, but because at the deepest level, they want to hear a word about life in the midst of death. And with all that is happening across the world, and certainly here at home in the past year, and no doubt in the years to come, we need to be hearing words of hope. Today, the Easter message of hope lives, and to those we say, arise. You will live. We will go on. You will live, you who feel that your prayers are unanswered or have fears that are daunting. You will live, those of you who have a health issue that is scaring or a depression that is lingering. To those in churches all across the world and right here in this one, we say, arise and live. You will live, those of you who face loneliness that makes the quiet deafening, those of you who have a relationship that is struggling, or kids and parents who might at times be challenging, or college or retirement funds that aren't where they need to be, creating a future that feels uncertain. You will live, you who gave up hope, who gave up dreaming, who have settled for a comfortable routine life of work and bills and a collection of things on shelves. You who think that your best years are behind you. You who think that others have forgotten all about your life. And to those, we say this morning again, arise. Arise from the heap of discarded dreams. Arise to discover that you have lived one more day to feel creation and community breathing back life into you again. Author Craig Barnes writes, arise to live with magnificent hope because the world is dying for you to believe otherwise. And so stand and rise and walk away from any empty tomb that is claiming a hold on you. For everyone out there who feels that their dreams have been destroyed, their hopes dashed, or their spirits crushed, here is the good news of Easter morning, that love could not be contained in any tomb whatsoever, real or figurative, that Jesus, who brought us a new way, a way that helps us today to continue to widen that circle of love and inclusion, still walks, still teaches, and still heals through our respect for the great commandment he left with us, to love God, to love neighbors, ourselves, in acts of justice. And all in order to keep our spirits elevated and not earthbound, in order to ensure that our spirits are not dictated to by human pain or loss or disappointment, and in order to be sure that our spirits are not stuck in a tomb of any kind. Easter brings each of us a second chance, and it is a chance to see the life force rising up in our midst. It's a chance we're given today to recognize that we can start again, even if it's just for that day. And my advice is take that chance. And so stand and rise, and this time I mean it. And sing with me now, Jesus Christ is risen today, page 9, and we will leave the place full of alleluias.